there, and welcome to another edition of Delivering Marketing Joy, the podcast. I'm your host, Kirby Hasseman, and want to thank you for coming along with me each and every week. Every Monday, try to provide a little bit of value, a little bit of a kick in the pants on a Monday, and hopefully want to provide you value this time as well. As always, feel free to reach out to me on any of the social platforms, whether it be Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or Snapchat even. Love Snapchat. So you can find me on there as well. And let me know if there's anything that you'd like me to cover from a topic perspective that might provide you value. So the topic today I want to dig into is books. I get, many people who follow me know that I really enjoy reading. For the last several years, the goal was to read 50 books each year. Because of that, on Instagram, I'll post the ones that I've been reading and give little synopsis. One of the things I promised to do is to do a little bit more from a blog perspective, to give a list of all the books I've read over the last couple of years. I haven't done that yet, but I will. But I did want to answer a question that I get all the time, which is, what are some books that I recommend for nearly everyone to read? And so we're going to touch on that topic today, because I think that historically speaking, learners are earners, right? I think that the more you read, the more you grow, the more perspective you have in the world, the more value you tend to bring in each area of your life, whether it be your job, whether it be your relationships. And by the way, let me just throw this out too. I think so many times when it comes to books, we give ourselves rules that are like made up rules. I was talking to Amanda Delaney recently, who's a sales rep, and she was asking, and I'm like, I think so many times it's like we create rules in our head that if we don't finish the book all the way through, it doesn't count. And again, I'm a big believer in finishing them, but if you can. But then on the other hand, I also believe life is short, right? If a book's not providing you value. But I've heard people say audiobooks don't count. Who the hell said that? Does that mean that if you are in a classroom that what the teacher says doesn't matter? Otherwise, because if so, why are they doing it, right? I mean, audiobooks absolutely count in my imagination. And my thing is if you have some books in there that you want to read just for fun, graphic novels, anything, they all count, because they all expand your mind and they all get you thinking creatively. So I just wanted to sort of dispel that rumor, because I just think that's a bunch of BS that we kind of put on ourselves. So I wanted to run down 5 books that I recommend a lot. 2 of them are sort of classics in the personal development space, and 3 of them are ones that are pretty recent and I've just loved recently. So I'm going to dig into that. So the first book I recommend to everyone, if you haven't read it already, I would absolutely go out and get it, spend some time on it. For me, it was a book that sort of changed my life, and it's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Now, I will tell you that it's funny. So the book was really great, and then I actually went through a workshop where we dug into all the topics on 7 Habits, and that's when I really... because I don't know how you are, but a lot of times when I'm reading something and it says, hey, just set the book down and then make a list of this, or set this book down and then do this. Well, I never do that. I just keep reading. And so the workshop really forced me to go through all the exercises in 7 Habits, and it really made a huge difference. So I say that just to say, if you are reading it, don't do as I say, not as I do sometimes, in that go ahead and go through the exercises. It really enlightened me to some of the things I think, some of the things that were important to me. I took the workshop while I was working at the Longaberger company, and 2 weeks later I quit. Not because the Longaberger was bad, but just because I realized that my values weren't aligned with what I was doing. And I did that with that book. So 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is one of the number 1 books, and I think a lot of self-development books are built upon that. So that's a fantastic one. Number 2, if you're an entrepreneur, E-Myth. E-Myth was recommended to me by my accountant, actually, at the time, or he's still my accountant, Jason Bradford in Coshocton, Ohio. Essentially, E-Myth is a fantastic book on building a business that sustains. He talks about building a franchise, whether you mean to build a franchise or not, and about building processes, about just thinking through businesses that can maintain. Super powerful if you're into entrepreneurship. E-Myth and E-Myth Mastery by Michael Gerber. Those are two books that I have bought repeatedly and given away. So those are two classic books that if you haven't already read them, they're not out of date. They're not out of style, so I would totally recommend those. Now the three new ones, I find myself recommending these all the time. Now the first one is The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. This one is awesome. And for me, I don't know how it is. I listened to this. This was an audiobook for me. I highly, highly, highly recommend the audiobook. Mel has a delivery that is fantastic. She is amazing. Tells her own story and all her own struggles through the 5-Second Rule. It's one of those books that's super simple. And at first when I started listening to it, I'm like, come on. It's almost so simple that you're like, well, how could this really have an effect? Let me just tell you, huge. It's a game changer for me and a lot of people I know. So the 5-Second Rule, I always say there's a difference between simple and easy, and she talks about that in her book. So the 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. The Motivation Myth by Jeff Hayden. Now, truth be told, Jeff Hayden is a guy I've gotten to talk to quite a few times. He's a great author and writer on LinkedIn and Inc.com. The Motivation Myth is terrific. From my perspective, it broke down big goals and sort of how to achieve them. And my favorite part in the book is where he kind of talks about how he grew his readership by, he set the giant goal and then he came back and was like, okay, but these are the 5 things I have to do every day. So that it was one of those things where it's a lead measure versus a lag measure thing. He set the big goal, but then he says, set it and forget it, because you're going to sit down and you're going to, just work on the things that you can control. And he dug into that in a way that really resonated with me. So that's The Motivation Myth by Jeff Hayden. I thought it was terrific. And then the final book I'm going to recommend, if you haven't already read it, is a book called Finish by John Acuff. Now, John Acuff is a good writer, a great speaker, both, and I've seen him speak. If you get a chance, I totally recommend it. But he dug into kind of some of the things that I think all of us have struggled with if you've ever started a project and not completed it. And one of the big takeaways in the book that I absolutely loved was he talks about what do you do after the day after perfect. So the idea being, look, you start a workout routine and then you are going crazy, and every single day you're knocking it out of the park, and for 2 weeks straight you never miss a day, right? And then one day you lapse, and then, as he points out, so many people after that first day of missing, they just never come back. It's because, as he says, perfection starts to dig into you and say, hey, if you screwed off now, you might as well give up. And he says, the people who succeed, the people who do achieve their goals, they get back after it the day after perfect. They don't beat themselves up. And so those are 5 books that I highly recommend. I'm going to dig into some more books in the future, but I wanted to recommend those really quickly. So 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, E-Myth Mastery by Michael Gerber, 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins, The Motivation Myth by Jeff Hayden, and Finish by John Acuff. Those are 5 books that if you haven't already dug into them, I would absolutely check them out. So those are my books. Let me know in the comments what books that you highly recommend, and maybe I'll check them out myself, and certainly the people who are listening or watching or any of that sort of thing can do that as well. Hope this was valuable for you. This is going to wrap up the Delivering Marketing Joy podcast. We'll see you next time. And that's that. That is how I record the Delivering Marketing Joy podcast each and every week. Now, what I'll do now is dig in, do a little bit of editing. Not a lot, really. Just kind of put some stuff in and then throw it on the website. So that is just one piece of my Sunday. But all joking aside, these are books that I highly recommend. So if you have a chance, I would definitely check them out. And like I said, let me know in the comments below what your books or your recommended reading is. And we'll see you next time.